I'd like to call the meeting to order. If everyone would stand and join me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are no agenda adjustments. So 2, consideration of the minutes. 2.1, to approve the minutes of the September 13th, 2023 Board of Directors meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing as there's none, I'll call for a vote. We have to do roll call vote today because Christy is online. So Diane?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Douglas?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes.
Yes. Robbie?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Christy?
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, I will allow public comment. Please make sure to come up to the microphone. Let us know who you are and where you are from. Anybody online? Any petitions or communications? We will move down to reports. Superintendent's report.
Okay, so in your packet, I noticed some things in this for this meeting. Just that to continue to look at the frequently asked question page on our website about the budget. So we're adding questions as we go, and if any board members get a question that they didn't see listed and would like us to answer, just send that over. I have a couple that I'm going to be adding, but just really trying to make sure we're hearing folks and giving them the information they need. The bus drivers raised concerns a lot about people going through the red lights. So when they put their stop sign out, people are supposed to stop. But there have been several incidences where drivers are going right through. And so we had one particular one, and I appreciate Mr. Alberti helping with the video downloading. But it was really blatant where the bus stopped fully for 3 seconds. The first car went through, and then another car followed. And so today a state trooper came, got the information, and we'll be following up with those two drivers to, tell them that's a misdemeanor. And so we're going to be following up with that. So it was really important to the drivers that they don't hear that those folks are just getting warnings. They want more than that. So in talking to the deputy chief in Sabattis, he said where it occurs is the jurisdiction that we need to contact. So depending on where it happens, that's why the state trooper, it happened in Litchfield. So the Litchfield handled it that way. And if it happens on our school grounds, we'll involve our SRO in it. But just so folks know, cameras are running all the time on the buses. So when folks do that, they just hit a button and mark it on their tape, and then we can grab their license plate, and we have the clip of when it happened. But it is serious, and people really need to pay attention to the buses. The other thing is administrators have opportunities when they have their 18 meetings to visit schools, and we're really working hard to focus on elements in our teacher evaluation model, and going in and seeing it and talking about how would we rate that visit. Would we say that teacher needs improvement? Is that teacher beginning, developing, applying, and are they going above and beyond in that element? So it's an opportunity to really focus on our work around instructional strategies and what's going on in classrooms for building relationship and helping support teachers and ourselves. And what we're seeing is really bright spots. Wow, this looks like it's really going well. How do we use that as we work with teachers on best practices? So it's been wonderful. We go tomorrow to Sabattis Primary, and we'll be focusing on routines and procedures. So it's been fun going around also and visiting buildings and taking pictures of things that people are posting, like their agendas, their what we call standard operating procedures, what they're doing for relationship building. So those things are going to be highlighted in the staff newsletter that goes out Friday and that I'll send to all of you as well. And then Kathy Martin facilitated the first positive behavioral intervention support for the district. So I wanted to make note of that and doing some check-ins and really trying to be aligned as a district in what we're implementing. And then noting that we went to Litchfield and Diane Whalen and Douglas Bumpus and Robbie Gayton joined that meeting and trying to give as much information as we could for the community around the budget. So those were highlights. I know I will recognize that people are frustrated with the bus calls, and we're really doing everything we can to mitigate that. There'll be, as we work really hard as a team, the drivers are a very strong team and really want to do what's best by the community. And so the red bus, tomorrow, there'll be an all-call going out that our driver for red bus was a substitute driver. And he's been gracious enough to drive pretty much full-time. Well, he has been driving full-time, but his last day is Friday. And it's taking 4 drivers to look at that run. Parents are not going to be happy in some areas because we've done bus stops. They cannot go door to door when they're trying to do their run and do a consolidation. So we're looking at where can students meet, where are there sidewalks, what's the best, way to do it to offer some transportation, and then parents will have the option that they can drive and pick up or drop off. But that is coming. I know people feel like we're not doing enough. I have to tell you, we're trying our hardest to do as much as we can. So reaching out to different school departments, looking at how to get more applications and do training. I went over that with the finance facility tonight. Reaching out to buses like companies like Hudson and Student First to see even what the cost would be for them to help us as we plan for budget for the following year. We may have to put more money in transportation in order to do that. So I just want folks to know it's an ongoing dilemma, and the drivers, I have to tell you, our drivers are a real strong team. They are always on the radio helping each other out so that our students are getting home safe and sound. And so I want a really big shout out to them because their buses are full and they're trying to make it work and keep their buses safe. So.
Assistant Superintendent report.
All right, so I'm going to go over some. Next one. All right, so I'm going to go over some of the highlights. I know we are a month into school, but this is my first report for the year, so I just want to kind of go over some of our summer school pieces. I really want to give a big shout out to Michaela Stevens. So she took a big bulk of the work this year. So I did a lot of behind the scenes, but she definitely took over. It was part of her internship as well, and she did a fabulous job manning the Camp Rise through the summer. It takes a village to put summer school on, from administrators to staff. My coaches, we met many times to go over curriculum and what does that look like, and picking our students. Our food service, I'm going to give you numbers in a minute, as well as transportation. It's always different to have different routes, and we had 2 locations, and just the timing, everything, custodial staff, as well as parents being flexible. Our theme this year, it was still Camp Rise, but we really made it a camp theme, so we have little tents in there. We had some of our staff doing, I don't know if you can show the pictures. Yep. Just kidding. I thought I changed the settings. Okay, go ahead. So there's just some of the photos of, you can see some of our staff were building rafts with our students. We also combined, as we have done before, with Nancy Dwyer to kind of provide services for students who qualified for extended year services, as well as some of our special ed programs are outside of Camp Rise, and they work in conjunction and still provide food and transportation, and then others are embedded into our Camp Rise program. So we work really hard to make sure all students get what they need, and you can kind of see, and we can go through some of the other pictures of some of the wonderful things. It was also nice because the playground got fixed or changed during that time, so they actually got their first trial at the new Carrie Rickert playground, so that was a highlight as well. It was a little rainy, so that helped with it being the temperature down. However, a lot more indoor recess, including on the first day of Camp Rise. So if we go back to the original slide, we can see by the numbers. So I gave you summer school by the numbers. This year, looking at the past couple years, our pre-K 4, our numbers have been dropping in August, so we chose not to, we just didn't have the staff as well as the interest in August. So only the high school ran in August, but you can see the breakdown of the students that are attending each of the sessions. So we had 391 students attend. For pre-K 8, it is teacher requested or parent requested. So we allow it's open to anyone that wants to come. During that time, we served 3,442 meals, and 92 credits were earned from our high school students during those 6 weeks that we had. So it was 2 weeks in June, 2 weeks in July, and 2 weeks in August. Say what?
What was K4 ESY?
ESY is the extended school year services for your special ed.
All right.
Every September, I've been asked on what our homeschool numbers are. I tried to give you kind of our running numbers. You can see that, during COVID, they jumped, and as of today, we have 112. Tuition reimbursement has been a talk during the budget process. I did another survey to kind of see, I did a survey last year to kind of make our budget proposal, and then I did another survey with our professional staff. So I think there has always been a question of what staff or why staff are taking courses, and so as we mentioned, we have a lot of staff that need courses for their certifications because they have emergency certification. So we have 53% of the staff courses that are being reimbursed are for certification purposes. 31 are for matriculated degree programs, and 16 is just for continued professional development. I have about 25 that I've already approved for this fall, and based on the survey, we have about 20 more expected to be submitted for spring and summer semester. Just so you know that we use the UMO rate for a graduate class. That's what the amount is. So if it's lower than that, if they go to a different institution that's lower, that's fine, but we max out at the UMO rate. The last piece I wanted to talk about was our backpack program. We started that last year. Probably at the high, we were in the 80s. I ran our last numbers this morning, and we are at 117. And just a big kudos to Hannah Diedrich and our other community partners, like the Community Cares Backpack Program, which includes a lot of volunteers, Good Shepherd Food Bank, and Healthy Androscoggin that make this happen. I will say our numbers at the middle school have increased. That's where most of those increases are at the middle school this year. So that is a plethora of topics. Any questions about any of those?
Yeah, Kathy, can you explain to us how the summer school program is funded?
So we used ARP funds. So one of the requirements for under COVID is that we had to use so much for loss of learning that happened during COVID. So we have wrote a project that will have paid for summer school for 3 years. So we have one more summer, and it includes paying for the transportation, our staff, our curriculum, all of those pieces. And so there's $0 coming out of the local budget. And we have one more year under the COVID relief funds. After that, going forward, we can apply for Title I funds, but that will look a little different in terms of how many hours we can do. There's a little bit more restrictions when you use those funds, so we'll have to talk about if we need to adjust what our program looks like if we have different types of funding streams.
Okay. And my next question would be, how many students, did all the students that were referred come to summer school, or did some opt out?
So we had some that we, parents or teachers were requested, we confirmed with them, and then for some reasons, they either came for parts, but not the whole thing. So we did have some students that chose not to come, but everyone that wanted to come was able to come.
Okay. So nobody was...
No one was turned away, there was no wait list. And that's always a gamble with our staffing. So it was really kind of, we kind of had to make some bigger groups than we normally do. And we had some staff that took on a group that maybe was a support staff that actually taught a class with our structure, with support to make sure that all students could get in. So it always starts with staffing first of what we can offer. But we've been lucky to be able to have our wonderful staff offer and work through the summer that we can support all our students that want to.
Thank you.
Yep.
If kids could, kids needed just support in math, could they just go for math support?
Nope. So the camp is integrated, so there's not just like a math time. It's kind of, it's really camp, and it's like holistic and a lot of fun. So we encourage that if they're going to come, they come for all of the pieces and parts. It's only a half a day too, so it's not a long time.
Previous to the COVID, because you said the ARP funds were being used for it the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so previous to that, was there a summer school option?
The only summer school option was high school, and that was just credit recovery.
Okay. And then is there any way to get Title I funds for the next year that then the ARP funds could be used for?
That's what I'm talking about, is the federal funds, but there's more, it's a application, and then you're not guaranteed it. It's a competitive process with what they do to offer summer funds is they see who has money left over that didn't use it in that previous year, and then they offer that money for summer. You have to apply. It's a competitive process against other schools, and then you have to meet the criteria in order to do that. So it might mean that we don't, it would be really selective, and only Title I schools would be able to partake in that. So like a middle school, we'd have to look at it in a different way.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Kathy. We'll move down to director's report. Now, are we going to fool me? Is it Norma Jean first this time?
I am first.
Okay.
Is that how it's listed? I don't know. And just a quick note for Christy. She's online. She said that Katie's mic wasn't sounding like she was underwater, so we made some adjustments.
Yeah,
So
the mic sounds like you guys are underwater.
Oh.
Kathy was fine, but some of the other mics are very, echoey.
Kathy doesn't need a mic, so maybe that's the reason.
Speaking into the mic.
All right, we'll give it a try, Christy. Let us know, okay? All right, so thank you. Raise of hands, who did their homework? All right, I love it, okay. So just so everybody knows, I gave them a homework assignment. We're going to get to that in a minute, and so that's kind of neat. All right, so I just wanted to give a beginning of year update. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I fight with the mic. I'm not, okay. So I just wanted to give a quick overview of the technology in the district, because some of you are new. I do this the first one every year. So for instructional technology in the schools, I just want to put down what the teachers have for devices. So they have a combination of MacBook, iPads, Chromebooks, depends on the grade level. For students, pre-K through 8 have iPads, 3 through 8 have the iPads with the keyboard cases, and 9 through 12 have Chromebooks. And in the classrooms, depending on the school and depending on the level, there's a combination of projectors, wall-mounted projectors, interactive whiteboards, which is the IWB, document cameras or ELMOs. You hear about those quite a bit. And we have USB cameras that we put in during COVID that they can use for, recording their lessons, or if a student is out and they want to connect remotely. And then for staff, like our office staff, kitchen workers, we have Windows PCs, Chrome bases, which is like a big Chromebook, laptops and Chromebooks. So we have quite an assortment through there. And we did make one change, as we have been changing our ed techs over to iPads in the schools where students have iPads, so they had the same device. They did have Chromebooks prior, so now they have the same devices as their students that they're serving, so it's more helpful if they know how to use the tool the kids are using. And I did update our technology overview. I had brought it to the subcommittee, and I'll bring it to the subcommittee again in December. Is that correct? In December. But I did put a link here, and you guys will get an email with these slides in your email, so you'll have the link to click on. Just kind of updating what's at each school, that type of thing. For our technology staff, just to give you numbers and who and what, and there'll be more details on next month's board report, is there's a tech director, a data specialist, and there's a network specialist that does all the backbones and servers and wireless, all that stuff. And then we have 3 technicians. We have one at the high school, one at the middle school, and one that services the 3 pre-K through 4 schools. All right, so for summer prep and upgrades that we've done over the summer, so our summer begins, our preparation for fall begins the week the school is out. So as soon as the kids leave, if not before, we're already preparing devices for the next school year. So we prepare them, we do repairs, we wipe, we clean, we resort, reissue. So we prep for summer school. So for Oak Hill High School and Oak Hill Middle School, they use one-to-one devices, so we get those all prepped and up to the high school. Mr. Carney at the high school guards them and distributes them. He does a great job with that. We prepare the incoming 9th grade devices, and then we sort them into carts or alphabetically or by radar connection, depends on the school level. We get them ready so they're easier to distribute in the first day of school. We did have a delay at LTS. Like everything else, it was a little behind because we couldn't get into that school to get the devices ready. So they were a couple weeks late, but we try to get everything ready for day 1 deployment or when the schools are ready. We did have a couple of upgrades over the summer, and actually it was just finished up last Saturday, is we had a wireless upgrade at Carricker that happened this past Saturday. We had a wireless upgrade at Oak Hill High School. Both those projects are through E-Rate. And then we had a reconfiguration of the high school server room, which was needed but forced because of the water and all the sheetrock dust and everything. So we got that cleaned up and reconfigured. So that was needed, so it worked out. And this was the homework for everybody who's in the audience, is I sent the school board members the link to our new app, asked them to load it before the meeting. And so our administrators have been trained on how to post to the feed, post new news, post to Facebook at the same time. It's linked together. And so hopefully this will be our new communication tool for like those big things, like we have, a workshop coming up or farm day or that type of thing, where that device is in your pocket all the time. You can set notifications or not, and so that's growing and adjusting every day. So we keep like adding stuff and removing stuff. So I love your feedback as you get on there and explore it. Our next thing, and Katie let the Finance Committee know about this, I believe, last meeting or 2 meetings ago, is we were awarded a cybersecurity grant through MLTI or through DOE. We aimed big because they said to aim big, so we asked for 81. We got 10. I'm happy with that. And so for cybersecurity, I just wanted to put a little detail. You hear that word a lot, but what is it? And so it's basically protecting our networks, our devices, our data from hackers, phishing, all that great stuff. Our firewalls get hit, I didn't want to count how many times a day someone tries to get into our network. And then it poses a question, is like how much of your personal data is out there? So if you think about what other companies have, what's on your computer, if it was, if you got some malware or a phishing attack and you lost your device, what they would access. And so just a little bit of a background. And the thing about the cybersecurity and the grant is we're being proactive. So we want to protect our networks, protect our servers, protect our end users' data, our kids' data, as much as we can, because it's less expensive to be proactive than reactive if we lose something. So risks of having poor cybersecurity is malware, which is malicious code that comes into your computer. Ransomware, we have had a server on site had 2 ransomware attacks, not a RSU4 server, it was a vendor server. You could have data loss, and that could be from, just something getting in there, like something wasn't patched up. It could be flaws in the software. And then hackers, so like phishing. And so to minimize the risk, we work on keeping our software up to date. We have antivirus on our computers. We are forcing more and more every day the use of stronger passwords. We're going to be implementing multi-factor authentication. You'll hear about that in the next couple slides. Install a firewall. We already have firewalls. We got those 2 years ago through the ARP funds, and so we're way ahead there. And be suspicious of unexpected emails. So sometimes we get an email, it looks like it's from Katie, but it's not. You look at the email and it's not Katie's email address, but they want a gift card. But we'd give her one if it was her. All right, so, and then there's no guarantee. With all the precautions, you just never know. There's always the human error that could bring that in, or a piece of faulty hardware. Okay, so the grant that we were awarded is to help us improve our network security, our safety, educating staff, parents, students about cybersecurity. The grant award was $10,075. And so the piece that we were awarded was to, we're going to be using Google as our authenticator. And so for multi-factor authentication, I'm sure you guys have seen it like in your banking. You log into your bank on your home computer, or you log in at work and it doesn't recognize your computer, and so it wants to text you. So you put in a one-time code that lets you in. That's the multi-factor authentication. And so to start that process, we're going to be doing a complete audit of our Google, they call it GAF or G Suite, to see what's out there. We did the same audit about 5 years ago. It's amazing what you find through that audit. So that will be shared with the subcommittee. We're going to upgrade our Google Workspace to the version that's a paid version, paid through this grant. We had it during COVID. The teachers really enjoyed those extra features. We enjoyed the extra security, so that's a win-win for us. So those are the two pieces that we'll be doing. And so for the next steps, I'm going to be working with Katie, the M team, the A team, the subcommittee, and then I'll be bringing information to you guys all the time, is we're going to form a cybersecurity team. We're going to develop a cybersecurity plan. We need a process of, documenting or having procedures for incidents and reporting them. We have an antivirus with an EDR, which is endpoint detection and response, and that is proactive. We get to see in a management console if machines are up to date, if they've had an attack, if they have a malware on them, which is really cool. We're going to be doing, we're going to be integrating PowerSchool into that with single sign-on with Google. We're going to hopefully reduce security incidents, increase in security awareness through education of all end users. We're going to improve risk mitigation by doing as much we can to the cloud. So right now, part of the grant we had asked to move our ADS server, which is here at central office, to the cloud. It's risky being here on site. When the vendor server was attacked at the high school, the first thing it went after was the server here, but it didn't get there. So we were able to mitigate that. But that was part of the grant that didn't get approved, but it was a good chunk of change. And so we're going to enhance an incident response, and then we're going to have feedback. So we could flip a switch and put this on like multi-factor tomorrow, but it wouldn't be successful. We need buy-in. We need to educate people. We need to do it slow. We'll start with the administrators, start with the nurses, start with our secretaries, and kind of bring in those pockets of people and test it out and check and adjust as we go. And that is it for me. So any questions? Lots of information. I'll share this all with you. Yes, Robin?
Yeah, can you explain the E-rate, how that's reimbursed and funded?
Yep. So E-rate is for each school, it's a different number. So we rotate the project. So the high school was a project for the previous year. We just finished it. And then Carricker, but it's based on your free and reduced numbers. Right. So that's why it's super important for those applications to come in. So with our current rate, we only pay about 12 to 15% of the total cost of the project. So it makes it more affordable. So that's why those are super important to have that.
What did the RSU4 app cost, and is there a continuing cost to that?
Yep. So the app was part of our new web host. So there was no cost to us. It wasn't an additional cost. It was part of their value-added service. that they would do all that for us. I think we signed our life away to get that app for the app stores, but we own that. So there isn't a monthly charge for that. It's not there's not an additional fee for that.
Back to this is really, so every student has a device?
Yep, we are one-to-one pre-K through 12.
And when kids can, I think every grade, do they bring their devices home?
No, they bring them home grades 5 through 12.
And for those students that are 5 through 12, do we know that they have like internet access? How do we help bridge some of that gap maybe if people don't have, or children that take their devices home in those grades don't have internet access or things like that to further do their assignments or things assigned to them?
Yep, so we have, and this is funded through emergency connectivity funding, so we get reimbursed for it, is we have hotspots. So we rely on our teachers communicating to us, our principals communicating to us, and I mean, Mr. Alberti's great about that. He'll email and say, I need a hotspot for so-and-so, and we just get it to him usually about the same day.
Did that answer your question?
It did, thank you.
Is there a reason we don't use the same platform for all grade levels?
The same device type?
Correct.
Yeah, so we have had,
I would say not device type, but platform.
as far as iPad or Chromebook?
Correct.
Okay, so for the iPads for MLTI, we had Chromebooks prior, and so you're locked into like 2 or 3 different kinds of devices when you go through MLTI, which means we don't pay for them. And so their offerings this past cycle were iPads. So we brought in iPads. They had the keyboard case. They use Chrome on it just like a Chromebook, which is kind of neat, but they also have the added benefit of those apps. And I'm not sure if that high school let me bring in iPads. I don't know. So teasing.
Well, that's my 5th grader missed her Chromebook. I want my Chromebook back.
Oh.
Like, I don't blame you. So the last question I have is, with this cybersecurity grant, would there be a way you could develop an option for sending secure documents so we can reduce the cost of inter-office mail potentially?
Yep, so we have that option, and we're rolling it out slow but sure. We're starting with special ed, and we have that through Power School. So it's a secure document and also has the signature path with it as well, sort of like a DocuSign.
Thank you, Member Jean.
You're welcome.
Facilities? Nancy?
Do you want to just click me, or you want the clicker? Okay.
Good evening, everybody. So special education, you can stay on the other one, the beginning one.
Okay.
For a moment.
I'm bad.
Sorry, I'm a director. So we are off to the races with special education this year. We had to shift some staff around from buildings that had less need to buildings that had more need. So that was a pretty relatively smooth move. Schedules are up and running. Students are being seen, receiving services. Things seem to be going pretty well. Referrals are coming in already a little bit. Evaluations are being done. So I thought I would just give you a little bit of a lay of the land as we start the year about some of the student data. So this was data that I put together from June. So I don't have the September one. That is sort of a moving target. We'll talk about September data a little bit, but really, in order to create this, I had to use some static data from June. So when you look at this, these are students' disabilities and the disability categories. So we have 13 categories in special ed, but I only listed the ones where we have students, primarily the bigger areas. So the biggest area for us is specific learning disability. That's the dark blue one at the bottom. Coming in next at about 24% is other health impairment. That can mean a lot of things. In our district, that generally means kids with ADHD or anxiety that are preoccupied and really can't focus on learning. Even though they have the ability to learn, they can't focus on that. The third highest category was speech language at around 15%. The fourth highest was multiple disabilities, and that would be students who would have 2 of those areas, not just one. And then emotional disabilities was around 12%, followed by autism, which was around 8%, and intellectual disabilities, which is around 5%. And then we had about 1% of other, which would be, in our case, in our district, that would be hearing impairment primarily. So when you look at the U.S. averages, I can only get data, it hasn't caught up yet to this year or to 2023. So I can access data from the U.S. averages for those disabilities for 21-22. And then I took those same June data points. So specific learning disability, if you want to see how we compare to the U.S. average from a couple of years ago, we came in a little bit lower than the U.S. average. Other health impairment, we were a little bit higher, coming in at 24%, and the U.S. average for that year, FY22, was 15%. Pretty comparable for speech language, a little bit higher on the U.S. average than for RSU4. Autism, we came in a little bit lower than the U.S. average at 8%. I have a feeling that will go up when I get the data from, like, say, fall. Intellectual disability was really comparable to the U.S. average. And emotional disability, we were, I would say, significantly higher, at coming in at 12%. Go ahead. So when you look at students, the percent of students who are identified from the total student population, the national average for that FY22 is 15%. And I think it pretty much hovers there. It's gone up, I think it was 14, and now it's probably still around 15 or 16. But in RSU4, and this is data from September, my most recent, looking at all the numbers of identified students, we came in at 21%. And I think that has been sort of par for the course. We're a little bit over in terms of identification. I wish I had the main data here for that in terms of identification, and I don't. I wasn't able to find that. So since the start of the new school year, we've had 36 new students enroll with IEPs. And that includes the 13 kindergartners, some of which we anticipated and that we already knew. We had transition meetings in the spring for. We've also had 14 students with IEPs exit since the end of the school year. Again, those numbers are changing. Tammy, my secretary, has been on vacation for the past 3 days, and it's a changing number pretty much weekly at this point. So when we think about out-of-district students with IEPs, currently we have 20 who receive their education somewhere out of district. That is comprised of 8 schools. 19 of those students attend a special purpose private school, and we've talked a lot about that with budgets in terms of tuition. We have 1 student placed out of state residentially, and that placement is not determined by an IEP team. That's determined by the Office of Child and Family Services, which is part of DHHS. But those students have to be educated, so we remain responsible for that IEP, even though the school is located out, in this case, out in Western Massachusetts. And then we have currently 2 students awaiting outplacement to a special purpose private school. Those wait lists generally are long, up to a year. One has been waiting a little while, and the other one has been waiting for the better part of a year. And so when you look at the students that we have placed at special purpose private schools, the disability categories, you can see autism exceeded all of the other categories in terms of the disability that we outplaced for. Emotional disabilities came in second, with 7 of those students being placed at special purpose private schools. We had 2 students placed at an SPPS with other health impairment, and 1 with an intellectual disability. And that's it. Yeah, I just want to say, piggybacking on what Kathy was saying about the summer programming, it has really been a positive experience, and I know I've talked about this before, for our ESY students, our IEP-ordered summer programming, to be able to be embedded into a classroom, because it's not just about the academics for those students. It's about keeping, sort of remembering what the routines are and how to be in a group. So it's really been a fantastic thing. So big thank you to Kathy on that one. Robbie?
Who said that?
I thought you had your hand up.
Oh, I did. Can you explain Can you explain to me the IEP process and how people get referred to special ed?
Yep, there's a form that we develop. The state has a recommended form, and districts generally tweak it to some degree. Anybody can refer a student to special education. Generally, it's teachers who do that. The second most prevalent party that would do that would be a parent. And so the parent would contact the principal, or the teacher would probably contact the principal and say, I'd like to refer this student, and then they're given the form, they fill out the form, they provide a lot of data, whatever the issue is, if it's, well, it's generally academic and social emotional. That goes to the principal reviews it, finds out, decides if there's enough data, if it's warranted to go forward to my office. And at that point, it does come to central office, and then I sign off on it, or not, if I feel like there's not enough data.
And I guess in that IEP, what kind of services would that cover? I know it runs the gambit of anywhere from, moving students out to a special school all the way to individual, people staying with them during the day.
Yeah, right. So, and I'm happy to provide actually a more detailed focus on that for the next board meeting as well. But students, the least restrictive would mean they have services in the mainstream classroom, probably with an ed tech or with a teacher coming in, or with a teacher, special ed teacher co-teaching with the special ed teacher. That's the least restrictive.
And that's all determined by the IEP?
It's all determined by the student's needs, yes. Yep.
Okay. I'm just asking the questions because
No,
there's
it's a
people
good
out there.
question.
There's people out there asking those questions, and you know what I mean. I know we throw a lot of acronyms around and stuff like that, but it's good to get an explanation of how we get to the process.
And then some students might have a combination of they're back in a resource room or back in a behavior program for part of the day, but then they're in the mainstream with an ed tech or without an ed tech.
Right.
And then you have students who are in the mainstream for specials and, all of the common areas like recess and lunch and all of that, but they're being seen in a resource room for their academics, for reading, writing, and or math. It could be all three, it could be just one.
Right.
And then you have students who are self-contained in behavior programs or functional life skill programs. And then from there, it would be, the most restrictive would be an outplacement.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Laura?
Do you mind going back to the slide with the percentages on it for me for a second? Keep going.
The yellow one. That one right there?
Back one, two more. One more.
Yep.
Yes, the pie, please. What's the number of students that represents? So
Total?
that's telling me like under other health impaired, there's 23.5% of that population, right? So it's not.
So the entire pie is the RSU4 total school population. So as of today, I think it's 1,282. I don't have that number for what it was in June.
That's not 23% of the 1,200. That's 23%.
Now, how many total special ed?
Yes,
Right.
so, I'm sorry, so so that would be around, right.
Was it
260-ish? 265, 261, something like that.
And then for the two that have been waiting for the placements, are they attending classes now or?
They're in our district, being served by, their IEP team.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Diane?
Are students with 504s considered in here?
No,
So that's not special ed.
no.
Can you tell me what 504 is? Sorry.
504 is, essentially, it's not services that are given to students, it's accommodations. So when a student has a 504, they need to have a disability. It's a less stringent identification. It could be provided by a doctor's note, a social worker could make that determination, or it could be a full-fledged psychological evaluation. And then 504 team comes together because, again, there's been a referral by a parent or teacher saying this student needs accommodations to overcome these barriers. So we're removing things. We're not adding instruction. which is probably the biggest difference. There's no direct teaching. It's really just removing barriers. And they meet annually like an IP team.
I just have one more question, but maybe I'll let you finish first.
I think to add to that, the teachers are legally required to follow whatever the accommodations need to be.
Absolutely.
Right. I think that's an important thing. It puts an extra level of responsibility on the teacher
It
to
does.
come down with simplifying notes or providing access to.
Yep, in 504s, unlike in special education, the plan actually has also responsibility on the parents' part and on the student's part, in addition to teachers. Laura? Was there another one?
I just had a question on the funding part of it. So we get, the district gets reimbursed per child that's in special education? Because I know that was a discussion of like trying to limit the amount that was in special ed, but
No, on our funding formula, it is my mic, it's bouncing back. Sorry, Christy. It's in the funding formula. So in the funding formula is a line for special education. So it's based on what we spend on special ed informs that number. There's a lot of formulas, a lot of things that is even hard for us to understand. How do you come to that number? What's the challenge is the maintenance of effort. So they look for how much have you spent this year, how much are you spending next year. So they're looking, are you keeping up a maintenance of effort to educate your special ed students? So if they see a drop in that, then that drops your, obviously, the money that goes through your funding formula. And it would also probably be a question as to what's happening in your district that's causing that.
Right, and generally that would be just lower number of students with IEPs. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Brian?
All right, good evening. So I just wanted to kind of provide a quick update of number of participants. So all of our athletic programs across the board at the middle and high school have more athletes participating this fall than last fall, which is a win in my books, right? The more opportunities we can get students to participate, the better. So just wanted to highlight that. Of course, we still are offering 8 sports this fall at the high school and 3 sports this fall at the middle school. Next, the Dempsey Challenge. I'm sure some of you kind of saw that on social media. We had a really great day. We had about 27 students and 4 staff members show up last Saturday. We raised about $3,800 for the Dempsey Center on behalf of Oak Hill High School. It was awesome. We had a great day. We had 2 staff members, Mr. Aliberti and Mr. Marr, who competed in the 65-mile bike ride. And then the rest of the people here did the 5K walk or run. It was a really great opportunity. As you can see, young man Isaac in the bottom right there actually got a picture with Patrick, which left a significant portion of our members jealous and a little upset. I heard about that for quite a bit. So it was a great day all around. It got a little interesting because 16 of them signed up the day before. So that made things a little tricky, but one of our bus drivers pulled through bright and early Saturday morning and got us there for 7 a.m. and it was an awesome experience. The kids are super excited. We're working on trying to plan a trip with these students to actually go to the Dempsey Center. The Dempsey Center reached out and they want to do like a hands-on activity with kids and try to do crafts or just actually understand what the Dempsey Center does for people in our community. So that'll be a really great experience for those involved. And they're even looking to kind of continue this year to year. You know, we're hoping this might turn into an annual event. There was an aspect of this which they call the High School Challenge, which high schools in the local area all kind of compete, see who can raise the most money. Leavitt High School won this year with, I want to say, around just over $6,000. So that's kind of our benchmark for next year that we're working towards. And then also, this is, of course, a fun week at Oak Hill High School being homecoming. So just highlighting some of our homecoming athletic events in the top left, and then a couple other special events. So a lot of the feedback I got from that leadership council last year was they were looking for a way to kind of spice up homecoming and make it a little better for everyone involved. So 2 of those things, one being the bonfire. We're having our first ever bonfire at the high school on Friday night from 6 to 8.
Not the first ever.
Not the first ever?
We used to have bonfires.
Yeah, it used to be
All right, well, My fact checks were incorrect.
Your first ever.
My first ever.
Robbie, did you have permission?
Yes, we did.
Okay, good.
Can I get a clarification? Was it a school sponsored event?
It was.
Okay, all right.
It was in the bowl.
Yeah.
And we actually burned a Mustang car for playing Monmouth.
Oh, gee.
Wow.
And people were taking sledgehammers to it for $1 a piece.
Well, times have changed.
Yeah.
Charity, that was
Yeah.
in the past, that's not happening this
No.
Saturday.
Yeah. Well, those are great ideas for next year. So we are doing it Friday. We got Wales Fire Department's going to be there. We're going to have police on scene, of course. We have a handful of staff and boosters who are joining us that day. It was kind of ironic. We brought the bonfire idea to OHLA, and we're trying to coordinate it, and we just didn't know if we could pull it off in time. And I told that to the head of our boosters department, and she looked at me and said, watch this. And this happened. So it's going to be great. We've had, I don't have lists of everyone involved, but we've had people coming over and helping trim trees to make it safe. We dug out a fire pit. Local businesses have donated 20 large pizzas for free, just so our students can have free snacks and food that night. Boosters is buying chips and sodas and drinks. So it's going to be a really awesome opportunity event for our students. And then kind of something else new on top of that, we're also doing a tailgate Saturday morning from 9 to 11, which will lead into our boys soccer match and then our football game on Saturday. And then at the football game on Saturday, we're also honoring all of our rec programs like last year. And this also happens to be the 10-year anniversary from the 2013 state championship football team. So we're also recognizing that athletic team as well. So it's going to be a fun-packed 48 hours, concluding with the dance on Saturday night. So it's going to be a really great time to be Raider this weekend.
The dancing graphic is just killing me.
I thought it was excellent.
Well, just to say, if you look in the very first yearbook, which is 1977, there'll be pictures of the bonfire in there.
All right, I'll do a fact check and I'll report back next time. That concludes what I have for this evening. Any questions? Thank you, and hopefully we'll see you all Saturday. Or at any of the other games.
Good evening. So Adult Ed has started with a flurry. Let's see if Okay, so dual status students is the first thing I was going to discuss. And so what is a dual status student? And what that is a student who, we go back and forth between calling it dual status or credit recovery, but it's typically a student who was not successful in a course, either their freshman or sophomore year, needs to recover that credit. So we offer it in the adult ed program so that they can graduate on time. So at this time, well, I'll go through the list, but so the benefit is that they are able to recoup that credit through our program, add it to their schedule. So their schedule may be full during the day, so that's why we can offer it at night for them to pick up that extra credit and then graduate with their class on time. How many do we have? Typically, in the past, we've had a lot, and then that overwhelmed our program with staff because we use our adult ed staff to run those courses, and sometimes that would allow us not to be able to serve the adult students that we had because there were just too many people. So we kind of tailored it back, and we went through a period of time where we weren't having a lot enter, and now we're kind of back to offering it to as many as we can. So we have 5 now for this semester, which is a little bit unusual. Typically what we see is more wanting to do it the second semester because it's seniors that start to panic that they're not going to graduate on time. So around January they start asking about the dual status classes. So and the process. So the process is we've smooth that out so that we can offer it again and not be overwhelmed. So they need to go through a form that is signed off by Mel as the guidance director, Mr. Alberti as the principal, and myself as the adult ed director. So they need to work ahead of time a little bit to go through that process. We typically don't allow freshmen or sophomores because, we just think they're too young to be trying to credit recover at that time. So it's typically a junior, but most likely a senior that will do that. And one of the things that we've added to the process is we really don't allow them to do more than 2 per semester, because what we don't want is somebody to try to credit recover 5 classes through the adult ed program. So we limit it to 2. Obviously, there are some exceptions that Mr. Albert and I will go through. So we've started some wellness programs. That seems to be a big thing these days. So coming up, we have a yoga class again, which was a popular one last year. Guided meditation, which piqued my interest a little bit. So if you've ever meditated, I have a hard time meditating because I can't keep my mind still for that long, or I fall asleep. So a guided one is you're engaged constantly with somebody talking you through it. So we're going to offer that. We have a new Aging Adventurously class and a Women's Health and Fitness 101. So those classes will be starting in October, going through November. And enrichment trips. One of the things I wanted to add to the program this year was doing some group trips for adults and youth. Where our title is actually Oak Hill Adult and Community Education. So the first one is a Botanical Gardens Climate Impacts Around Us tour. And what I plan to do is, depending on the number, we're going to try to limit it so that I could use a van, so we won't have a bus cost to that. I'll drive the van, and we'll upcharge it by about $10 of whatever it costs to get into Botanical Gardens, so that we can have a little revenue from that. But that's targeted for October 14th. We will get a group rate, so that should help reduce the cost a little bit too. The Discovery Museum one was geared more towards parents and their youth, and I'm on a waiting list for them to get back to me as to what they can offer for us there. Wanted to do a Portland Sea Dogs game this fall, but didn't get that booked. But looking at doing maybe a couple of Maine Celtics basketball games, same thing. Take a van. If we do get a large amount of interest, we can possibly take a bus if we can cover the cost of it. And then Spring Flower Show, which would be a little bit of a bigger one. That's usually in Boston in the spring, and it would again be taking a group of individuals down there with an upcharge just to try to increase some of our revenue programs. I didn't add a slide to this, but we've already had 2 graduates through the HiSET program this fall, and we have several more that are signed up and prepping for the HiSET, along with some high school diploma students. We actually have a lady who is 60 years old that's coming back to get her high school diploma. So that's kind of a good story, and I'm hoping that we can make that one happen. So, any questions? Sure.
Just a question about, I've seen some other districts with their adult ed programs do like substitute teaching and ed techs, and as well as bus driving. And I know that you and John were talking about bus drivers before.
Yeah, so we do offer the substitute training. We've already had 4 people go through this fall. And I talked with Kathy Martin because there's a kind of a different substitute training. That one is for teaching in the classroom. But we've talked about that we need to offer a different training for cafeteria staff and for bus driver staff. So I'm looking to try to develop and tweak the sub-training for teachers to cover the needs for those areas. As far as the bus driving course, so we've looked at a couple different areas. We've spoken with Oxford Hills, who runs it. They pass the cost on to the consumer, which is about $2,500 to $3,000. And we've also talked with Marina Cook, who offers it, and had a grant that has run out. They were reserving spots for us, and but it was still a pretty big expense. Our budget, especially now, can't handle the cost of hiring an instructor to do that without passing on that cost to the consumer.
Is that $2,500 or $3,000 per
person
that wants to take a course to become a bus driver? And do we have any, as we're having busing issues, right, this week and beyond, but is there any discussion that maybe we set aside $10,000 and do 5 people, or?
Possibly. I mean,
Yeah.
Katie and I talked a little bit yesterday about an opportunity that might come up.
So what we're looking at right now is there's an online training that's $200. And so we're going to be working up an option. It's not, I mean, Jim offered to have it as a housing, so I know you were going to report out. You want me to just go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we talked about at the Finance Committee meeting, what we are looking to do is we have an applicant, we have 2 applications out, so we're hoping they're going to be turned in. And those folks would be hired as bus aid type position, where they have the opportunity to be on our buses and learn what does it mean to be a bus driver, and also to support our bus. It's kind of a win-win for the person and for us, having extra support on our buses. And part of that time, so they're being paid for that, and then they'll be paid to take the class. So it'll be part of their responsibility is taking the class, being a bus aid, and supporting our bus drivers. And then they would pay for the $200, and then we would look at the end of the year, if they stay with us for the full year, we can look at reimbursing them for the cost. So what a person has to do is take the online course, and then they sign up at the state level to take the written exam. And when they've done the written exam, which does have a fee to it as well, then they are approved to do the driving, which is about 40 hours. And so we have several drivers that said if we get someone to get that far, they would support working with that driver to get the 40 hours. And then when they complete that, they go to the for the driver's test. So it's not quick. It's probably 2 months, depending on how diligent. But if somebody came on board, then Jim and I were talking about the person could be working on our buses and then go over to the adult ed program to log into the class and have support in taking the course. So that's where we are right now.
Did that answer all your questions?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yep.
Is there any talk about having a babysitter course or CPR or Red Cross?
Yeah, so typically we do the CPR first aid with United, and they're really booked. They don't have instructors, so my backup is usually the Red Cross, and they used to do the babysitting course for us before, so I have a call into them, as well as our trainer has connections through Maine Med to be able to offer a first aid CPR course, but probably not the babysitting. So yeah, that's one of the things we're looking at.
No hunter safety this fall?
They're having a hard time getting instructors for that. When I talked to the gentleman last year when we did the bow class, he said we just can't get instructors anymore. And you can get it online, which also which also puts a damper on the in-person.
Come back to me.
So do you want me to do a reminder of why it's 50 cents? Would that be helpful? Would that be helpful? No? Okay, forget. Okay.
Scott,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Brandon, Christie,
Yes.
Robbie,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Laura,
No.
and I'm a yes. Diane?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Thank you. New business, 7.1, to approve the first reading of the following policies. GCI, professional staff development opportunities.
So moved.
Second.
So, I can get these in my
They
mail.
went in the
I got it.
Yeah, I got them. I just brought last meeting's agenda to this one.
I never
If I may
received
ask, what was the genesis of making the change on this one and on the other one? It seems like we added a new paragraph to each, and what was the necessity of making this change?
Christy, you want to answer?
I can try. I don't have my notes from the last meeting in front of me, but if I recall correctly, and Kathy, please jump in if I am speaking out of turn. These two policies hadn't been updated with a change in the law, so we are just adding a few sentences to make sure that we are in compliance to what the district has already been doing since 2018, Kathy?
Well, GCI is not updated to the law. This one was just 2002, but our staff actually is part of the required policies that they have to read annually, and staff were questioning why we haven't updated it since 2002. So the red was, we're just adding those pieces because the board felt like it was very clear about what we're spending money for in professional development. So they looked at the current policy that we have, the recommendation from MSSA, and we were considering adding that, so it's very clear about what do we spend our money on for professional development.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah, I had, so anybody else has any comments, let me just go down here again, because I had my copy of the house.
Is there anyone else?
Yeah. I guess before they can visit, I guess how would we cover people that want to go to other classrooms or other schools, Katie? Would we have to hire a substitute for those positions if teachers wanted to,
Yeah, they would work on how to do coverage.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
If I may. So we have on here membership on professional committee. Diane mentioned in our last meeting that she always had to pay for her memberships to professional organization. I'm not sure what you mean by professional committee that we as the board are going to pay for.
Yep, so we use, some of our staff go on, are members of certain committees. We are, part of WMEC, which allows our staff to collaborate and network and access other professional development. Our coaches are accessing professional development through memberships through UMO, UMF, and other organizations that allow them to access either online or in-person professional development. And sometimes they're on committees, sometimes they are just allowed to go to conferences or workshops. So it just depends on what their role is and what the organization that we're connected to. So we have school counselors that are part of different professional development. So it encompasses all opportunities for our professional staff.
But doesn't our dues as an RSU for these organizations cover the, so is there a membership fee that we're saying in here that we're going to?
On some of them, yes.
I guess I have an issue with paying membership fees for being on a committee that we're in an organization and we're paying dues to that organization already to be on there. I don't know why they would charge a fee to be on a member of a committee that we're already on an organization of. So that's the one that caught me. Plus, I'm not quite sure where we talk about workshops with personnel from departments, county, state, region, and nation. That kind of opens up to sending people to Tucson, Arizona for a Southwest Region conference.
So all of those language was what was originally in our Oak Hill High School policy. So I didn't change. 1 through 5 is what you already had in the language, in the policy since 2002. So that is not new.
So the red's not new?
It's not new. I've just highlighted that we are keeping that piece. That's not recommended from MSSA. The original policy that's in black is MSSA. RSU4, when they had it in Litchfield and Oak Hill High School, that's the language of the policy. It wasn't RSU4. That is still in there. So none of that was is new. And the policy committee want to just highlight that we're adding that and keeping that.
So adding that is not new then,
Correct.
and then that wouldn't be adding. All right, so I'm just my concerns that we're opening ourselves up for additional costs that are kind of hidden and we might not know about, and paying for a limited number of staff members their dues for something we don't pay it for all, and I'm not encouraging us to pay it for all for everything, but that's my concern with this one when I read it. I thought the red was all new. That's typically an indicator that it's something new or revised, and revised would show the line out and then the red line.
Well, it's because we had two policies. We had a Litchfield one and we had an Oak Hill High School one that was both, and so it's new to one but not new to the other, and both were posted. So I just wanted to be transparent that it was new in one area, but in the Oak Hill High School one, it's not new.
Okay, so let me just, for a point of reference for the policy committee, when the RSU was formed, the only policies that were maintained were the Oak Hill High School policies. All other policies became obsolete at that time. And we started our policy review to see if we had to go any. So we had to select what policies would go in place, and we couldn't have multiple policies on the same subject in the RSU as a single unit. So if you do a review and you find one from Wales, Sabattis, or Litchfield, those policies, if there was one for Oak Hill, the Oak Hill one is the one that was approved by the board going forward until we could work. If there wasn't an Oak Hill one because it had something to go and do with the lower grades only, then we had to work something out there. But as you do your policy review, if you find ones from different school systems, if there's an Oak Hill one, that's the one that the board, way back when, said would be the guiding one, and the other ones were to be disregarded.
Any other discussion? Seeing as there's none, I'll call for the vote on the first reading. Diane?
Yes.
Scott?
No.
Douglas?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Robbie?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
And a yes. That'll come back for final reading. Second one is the GCOC evaluation of administrative staff.
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. Any discussion?
This is the one that we updated due to the law.
Thanks, Kathy. It's hard to keep track.
No discussion? Seeing as there's none, I'll call for the vote. Diane?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Douglas?
Yes.
Brandon?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Robbie?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so passes. Thank you. 7.2, the principals are going to share some information regarding their school goals.
So we're pleased to have the principals sharing what they're working on with their staff and their teachers and around school goals. And so I want to make sure you see what they're working on, what their goals are. Remember, those school goals are things that play into the principal's evaluation, the staff's evaluations, and also drives what their work is on their Wednesday afternoons in their professional learning groups or their PD. So the first school to come up is Libby Tozier.
All right, thank you for having us tonight. We can go ahead to the first slide, or second slide, I guess it would be. The first one, I just want to say that for our school goals is in the instructional handbook, grades pre-K to 4. We have the same school-wide goals. So some of the information that you may hear will be similar amongst presenters. However, our action steps are individualized based on student and school needs. What these common goals allow us to do is work closely with other administrators, coaches, and have consistency in our messaging and delivery, universal language for students, and collaboration amongst staff to work towards common overarching goals to meet students and their unique needs. For literacy up here, our goal of 80% of students will increase their scaled score by at least 1 point in writing. What this means is scores will increase over time with guided supports from teachers, ed techs, and coaches. So how do we do this? We have coaching support. We have interventions with guidance from our literacy coach. Collaboration amongst teachers and focusing on best practices for all of our students. And lots of professional development for staff. We've worked on developing our pacing guide this year, really focusing in on that to make sure that we're reaching all of our students in a timely fashion and reaching all of our units that we need to teach this year so they're ready to move on to first grade. We can go to the math one. For math, is recommended by the Department of Education. We're focusing on 40% of our students will meet or exceed the projected WIT scores in mathematics. This is based on our NWA scores. This goal is extremely helpful for longitudinal data as it is a starting point for many of our students for using the NWA universal assessment throughout our district. This goal is also a really great piece for communication with parents. It offers excellent reports from student reports, individualized where we can use visuals to communicate with parents where students are currently and where they're headed towards and how we're going to get them there. These are really excellent for parent-teacher conferences and other times where we're meeting with them. We can use our NWA reports for a variety of resources with all staff and make sure that we're meeting students where they're at. To support this, we have our coaches. We have targeted support for individual students. Again, collaboration is key, focusing on best practices for all our students and professional development for staff. We can go to the PBIS one, I believe is next. For PBIS, we'll expand a little bit more on this for Carrie Ricker, but we have started the school year with our PBIS school team, district team, summer trainings. We have a PBIS coach. We have Department of Education partnership. We have a school-wide team, district-level team, and we also do lots of data review and analysis for our behaviors. For our school-wide goal is 85% of students will respond to our tiered intervention for behavior in SEL as evidenced by our office discipline referrals and Swiss data analysis by receiving one referral or less during the 23-24 school year. The number one piece is we are promoting positive behavior amongst our students and positive language amongst staff, which will integrate into everyday academics. And as you can see by our goal, what that means is less time in the office means more time in the classroom. For attendance, the next slide, 95% of students will attend school from September to June as reported by PowerSchool. We do this by attendance tracking, connecting with families on a regular basis. Last week we met with the leadership team at Libby Tozier and developed a way to communicate with parents after 2+ absences. Teachers will be reaching out to parents just as a connection, reminder that, hey, we miss you, we want you in here in school. We also have administration reach out after 5 days, and then we also set up additional meetings with parents as well if it becomes more of a chronic issue. We also have our student support team that focuses on all of our students throughout the school. Even if they're missing, say they're missing Fridays or Wednesdays, we can kind of target that and come up with a plan for the student to make sure they're in school. Of course, there'll be sick days and vacations, but if a student is able to come in, we want to make sure we're there, and that's why we're shooting for 95%. Questions about Libby Tozier goals?
Yeah, and I know the testing part of it that we do for the, with the state averages and the national averages and all that. But over the years, I've been a big opponent about making sure that our students individually grow.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's hard for every student to max out at the state level or the national level. But if our students can get from where they are in let's say year 3, and they get to year 4, I think that's a more important number individually for us as a district than the national numbers are. And that's the number I like to see.
Yep, so we're focusing on individual growth goals.
Yeah.
So this means a student will take the assessment in the fall, and in the spring, they'll have a score, our target score that they want to meet. What we do is, so let's say the national average we'll do third grade, is say a 185 in that area.
Yeah.
Say a student scores a 170. Their spring goal will not be the 185, it'll be about a 182.
Right.
So we work with teachers and develop strategies, professional development, on how we can reach those individual students, just as you stated, from that 170 to 182, and what supports we can put in place throughout the school year, in addition to our regular math curriculum in Tier 1, Tier 2 instruction, et cetera.
Yeah, great.
Bob?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, if I may, and then a follow-up on your response to Robbie. So on our literacy goal, we're talking about increased scale score by at least 1 point in writing. So what's an increase of 1 point in the scale really equate to? I mean, 1 point, if I tell somebody I'm going to do one better, is that 1 out of 100? Is that 1 out of 3? I mean, how can we equate to what one's really going to, what's our goal for improvement in this area?
Sure. So we use literacy rubrics to assess our students. We use our Lucy Calkins writing. And essentially what we're doing is when those students score various areas, such as conventions, we were actually going over it today at Carricker, leads in other areas. What we want to do is we just want to see improvement over the course of the school year. So say a student receives a 1, 2, 3, or 4. Say they're at a 1, we want to get them to a 2 by the spring. So that if they're really struggling, say with conventions, we want to see them improve by at least 1 point. And essentially what that's doing is bringing them up to peers at grade level.
Okay, so it's basically on a scale of 1 to 4?
Yes.
So 4 would be
exceeding the expectation, that's correct.
All right. And then my next one is mathematics goals. We're only looking to have, our goal is only 45% to meet the standards?
So
meet
I'm
or
sure,
exceed?
yeah. So I'm sure Kathy can elaborate on that, but that is correct me if I'm wrong, a Department of Education suggested goal that we use for grades pre-K to 4.
So, okay. For me, a goal would not to have 55% of our students not succeeding. And that's the flip side of
It's
this
a
goal.
growth goal. It's not a achievement goal. So I think that's the biggest difference here. So we are having 45% of our students are going to meet, we're going to meet where they're at, and they're going to have a growth goal. So this also means that even your GT exceeding students are still going to have a growth goal to continue to move forward. They will have to meet their growth goal as well. So this allows that we are going to be looking at all data of all kids, no matter where they're at, that we're going to take their fall data, have a growth goal for the spring, and we're going to measure that 45%. This is based on, there is millions of kids that are taking NWA, and this is the recommended goal that the DOE has suggested that we put in place. So most of the time, only 50% around the nation hit their growth goal. So we're starting at 45 because we're new to NWA. We're not getting our spring data till October 2nd, and we're starting our testing on October 2nd. So we really are not being able to use last year's data to inform this instruction. So the DOE is saying put 45% because the average is about 50.
All right, so this isn't, the way I read it is we wanted 45% to meet or exceed the standards. What you're saying is we're looking for 45% to meet or exceed an RIT projected RIT score, not that.
So they're meeting their growth goal. This is not, we only want 45% to achieve grade level goal. That's not what we're saying. We're saying growth goal. So we're focusing on growth, not achievement.
I mean, to Bob's point, you still have 55%, not.
Yeah, it says projected RIT, which, here's an acronym, I'm not sure what the RIT stands for, score in mathematics. So normally we see goals based upon meeting the what is established as the meets or exceeds standards, okay? So that's the goal. When I see goals for the past 2 decades plus, all right, it's always been looking at our students at the level that's classified as a meets or exceeds standard in their testing. Not growth, but are they there? And so when I look at this, I can't help but interpret it in that way.
And I
So
understand,
that,
yep.
you know,
I totally agree with you, Bob, but the difference is, we have started a new assessment last year. That's why last year, we didn't come to the board and show you your fall, winter, spring data that we will start to do this year. The reason is because the state hadn't created those cut scores of what is achievement, what is a level 3, what is a level 4. They hadn't determined those yet. We didn't know what those levels were, so we couldn't make a goal last year, at the end of last year, and write our applications unless we did it as a growth, because we still didn't even know what the cut score was. So we're starting, we now know what the cut scores are, we'll see what our data is, but in terms of the suggestion from DOEs, because they're still making those benchmarks, that it was just going to go take where kids are at and improve your growth.
So, and I'll get down here in just a second. So this goes to something that we that have been on the board for a number of years and in the classroom for a number of years, it seems like DOE every 5 years changes the standards, so we can never track long-term what our students are doing. I mean, I used to put it all in Excel and then track every graduating class and what their scores were per class, so that I could map out what they were doing in each classroom and all that, and then all of a sudden they changed the testing criteria. We didn't get the scores anymore. They just keep doing this again. Why we go along and we don't pick a program like we were doing that we do the testing and we would have the results, and of course then we're in our own little bubble. We don't know how well they're doing compared to other students in other schools. So, you know, it's just disheartening for them to change the system all the time so that we can't really see how our students are progressing.
Douglas?
I just, thinking about the parents and stuff too, I don't think they maybe all know what RIT scores are. Maybe if we had a slide that explained it for, you know, the parents or something too, and to Bob's point.
We'll explain it when the parents get their parent report. It does explain that, and yeah, and it breaks it down for parents.
Okay.
And we can show a writing rubric next time. We can show what a parent report looks like, and we'll break that down.
Yeah.
I'm going to be showing at CAI in October our data from last year, so we'll kind of go over that. But I'm sure the principals can give examples.
Yeah, one at the budget committee, one of the budget committee members constantly says that these initials and stuff tend to be overwhelming for the average person. So I feel like going forward, if we can have a definition for the initials, or at least a minor explanation as a slide, it would help when we go forward, just for the average
Like a
person
glossary or
watching.
something?
So may we have the acronym, please?
Yeah, the acronym.
It's RIT score. I don't even know what the,
Oh,
it's just, everyone calls it a RIT score. I mean, yeah. But we'll explain it. I mean, this is like our goal that we use like technically to send to the DOE, but ultimately when our staff are looking at it, they know that it's 45% of a student growth goal in math using NWA.
So it's a measurement is what it is, the RIT score, RAS unit. I will say that I've used NWA for 10 plus years, and the more that we use it, the more buy-in there is from staff and parents. I know as a parent myself who goes to my child's, parent-teacher conferences, it's extremely helpful just to see where kids are at. Compared to, not only can you do it compared to other students that are in the district, but as we talked about, nationwide, you can compare those scores as well. So yes, there is those individual goals, but you can still compare to district, nationwide. And what's great is, as well, since we're using that as a universal assessment, we can use this as cohorts as well. See how kids are doing together, K, 1, 2, 3, 4. Seeing what it is by grade level, we can break it up and do anything we want. So it is extremely helpful for both teachers and parents.
I actually had another question. On the PBIS goals, it said that your measurement, your goal is to receive one referral or less during the school year. Can you explain what a referral is?
Yeah.
Specifically.
This is another goal that's suggested by the PBIS, the cohort that we're with the Department of Education, that they suggested that we use when we started the part of the application process. So an office referral is simply someone does something that it needs to be addressed by administration. This is beyond the tier 1 piece. This would be something like a physical aggression, disruption, more serious behaviors, essentially, where administration would then need to call home to parents after they meet with the student and develop a plan with the teacher.
So, how is it a goal to receive less than one of those per student? If they do something how are you going to prevent them from doing these behaviors?
Again and again?
Yeah, well, even once. I mean, I feel like if somebody, there are some things that, in my mind, seem like they would require administrative intervention immediately.
Yeah.
That, how would you prevent that? And then, if you got 85% of the students, so.
Yep. So they can receive one referral.
Okay.
Right? So one referral or less during 23-24. So our goal is, through PBIS, that's why we're implementing it, right, is to make sure we're doing that restorative work. So when we meet with a student, we say, what happened here? Say they got in a fight at the playground. What happened? What can we do differently next time? And what's something that we can do to replace that behavior? Replace the negative with a positive behavior. And essentially when we do that, and we keep an eye on that, and we work with the teacher to make sure that's implemented, we don't see as many students return. So hopefully that incident is something they did once, and then they do not happen again and again. Now, that being said, we're still going to have 15% of kids might have more than one office referral, right? That's what that's saying. But our goal is to have 85% at the end of the school year. So when we do that restorative piece through PBIS, we can make sure that we can limit those behaviors to a minimum instead of having them occur again and again. So that's exactly why we're implementing it.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're using PBIS as a system?
Yes. Support. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the questions that I've heard about PBIS is, people come up with questions, why do we have it, why are we, but PBIS isn't just taught after the incidents. They're actually taught in the beginning of the school year. They go over what you should do for playground, what you should do in classroom, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then the PBIS, that administration that you guys are using, it's after the fact.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've created school-wide matrices. We've created SOPs for various areas throughout our school. We do a lot of celebrating positive behavior. We're creating common language for students that they're hearing at all of our schools. So there's a consistency piece there that's important. Expectations are clear, and that way students are looking to follow those more accurately.
I do want to say Dustin's going first.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so everybody's got the same similar goals. So Dustin, and we know he needs to go home too. Okay. No, I know that, but I just want to he did go first. So whoever was going to go first set the stage, and I really appreciate it. But you might have questions that another principal can answer because the goals are similar.
We can repeat the question.
I'm sure they'd appreciate that too. But if you write down your question, and then if Dustin can share Carrie Rickers, and then, Michaela has similar.
We're going to skip you and let Dustin go.
Yeah, Dustin, keep going with your
Then we'll
Carrie
come back to you.
Rickers.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're going to be similar goals,
Are we really?
and, yeah.
Okay.
Like, share the wealth of your questions, I guess is what I'm saying.
I don't mind.
I know you don't, but.
All right.
Then no one else has anything to say.
Right? So for Carrie Ricker, we are going to, same goal, right? We want to increase 1 point in writing. Same strategies, essentially, right? Coaching support, Title I literacy interventions, and 6-week review cycles. Reviewing and analyzing data is really important. Collaboration amongst teachers and focus on best practices for all of our students, and professional development. So in literacy, we are identifying and modeling research-based writing strategies that are known to support student learning. We provide resources to support areas of need identified through pre-assessments. We also review data, pre-post, test, and regular classwork to determine student progress towards these goals. For instance, this afternoon, we spent 2 hours going over the science of reading with our staff and then broke off into 3rd and 4th grade teams to tackle the writing rubrics they will be using this year to make sure we are collaborating amongst staff, best practices used in the classroom, and making it really important that if a student is doing a writing assignment in teacher A room, they're getting the same scores they would be in teacher B. So that's where we're really focusing. For math. The biggest thing that we did was familiarize ourselves with this goal and how we're going to achieve it as a school-wide team. Each individual, from ed tech to special ed teacher, plays a vital role in our journey to reach this goal. We kicked off our first workshop day this summer by going over this and really establishing what our supports were. Up there, as you can see, we have coaching support, Title I math interventions, analyzing data, collaborating, and professional development. Presenting this goal to all teaching staff, we're able to talk about what this goal actually means, how we're going to get there as a team, and the supports we'll have in place throughout the school year to meet it. We have started by the math coach facilitating meetings to co-plan lessons to help stay on track with our pacing guide as much as possible, while also taking into consideration student needs. Admin and coaches are helping teachers to strike a balance between the two that ensures our students are presented with all priority grade level standards to reach their goal by the end of the school year. We will be reviewing our NWA fall data along with growth goals and using coaching cycles to support teachers in helping their students reach these goals. We will review the data again in the winter to see how far we've made to get to our spring goal. PBIS, we kind of just talked about a little bit more. The big thing is this Friday we have our PBIS celebration in the gym from 2:10 to 3 if anyone's available. We are creating common language, expectations, and students are starting to see the routines that are embedded within PBIS to have a clear understanding of what their role is, and staff is seeing what their role is as well through PBIS. Consistency and clarity is what we aim for to bring our office referrals down to reach our school-wide goal. And finally, attendance. We've already begun the process of building relationships between school and home for these students who may be starting to show a pattern of absenteeism. There's a direct correlation, as we all know, between attendance and academic achievement, which is really what our supports up there are doing: attendance tracking, positive phone calls home, reminders from admin, and then our student support team works directly with our admin and teachers to make sure that all students are looked over. Questions?
I think you covered them all already. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to be presenting Sabattis Primary School's goals, and they are the same as Dustin's. So here we go. Same literacy goal. We're doing a lot of coaching support, targeted instruction, professional development, individualized feedback, monitoring progress, and intervention strategies. We have a wonderful system of Title I supports and coaching cycles that are offered to all staff, and going through identifying groups. We actually dug into some NWEA data today, and then cross-referencing with other formative assessments that we give as well. Moving on to our next goal. Our math goal is the same: coaching, support, targeted instruction, professional development, individualized feedback, monitoring progress, intervention strategies, the same as the other. We went through some different reports, and you will see on the parent report there's some questions that you can ask the teacher. So it's really engaging, like, what does this report mean to me and my family, and how can I get some answers? So just going through with staff is, what does that RIT score mean per each student, because it is going to be different for each student and how they progress and where they're at. And then what do they need to individually work on? NWEA is a great system for giving suggestions based on their strengths of how to enrich, but also how to support when they're maybe testing at a lower level. But we also have to keep in mind it could have been a bad day for testing. It could have been a mistake. So we're really cross-referencing with other assessments that we have as well, especially at the younger age where it's the first time some of them have taken this test. Okay, next. We have our PBS goal. We have a great layer of supports throughout our district and within our school. For our DOE partnership, we have our PBS district and school team that meets monthly. We have our school-wide matrix that was developed with staff. We already had very strong SOPs in place, which are a standard operation of procedures. We really aligned that with our school-wide goal and our vision as well, and students were able to participate in that. So it was a collaborative approach with words that meant something to our students. And then next, this is our attendance goal. We have our student support team that talks about any bubbling attendance issues on a weekly basis. We have our attendance tracker where we're looking at our percentage, and I mean right now we're at 91% to start the school year off. We have constant communication. We have first our office is checking in to make that first phone call home, like, where are you? Teachers are reaching out. Then we also have at the admin level, like Dustin said, we're going to give kind of that warning, like, hey, you're teetering that line. We need to make sure that we're here to support you. And then it comes to a point where we may need to have a meeting where parents come in and make a plan of success. And those are my goals for SPS. Does anyone have any questions? Robbie?
Yeah, getting back to the literacy and math piece, if you have a student that's not getting any help at home,
Yeah.
and you're sending homework home and it's not coming back done or it's not coming back correct, what kind of things do you have in place to help a student like that if you're not having any parent participation?
Well, I think that's a really good question, and I mean, we always want to partner with families and give enrichment opportunities, but that can't be held against a student. I mean, everyone comes from different backgrounds and support in their home life as well. That's not held against a student.
Right. But
No.
what's in place to help that student? So, like I'm saying, homework's going home and the student's not. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it, Diane, that they're not getting any help from home, and their homework's not getting done because they're not getting any help from home. What do we have in place that a student can get help at school?
Mm-hmm.
During school time with like math problems or literacy
Yeah.
or like that. And I know not all those students are special ed or have an IEP or a
Well,
504,
That's part of like our RTI process where they may be getting title services. They may be in a group working on a specific need in the classroom. A lot of teachers do centers, and it's focused on what that student needs. We're also going to be offering after-school enrichment opportunities for students. And so teachers are going to be able to offer support. I have one right now interested in offering math support for students. So we're seeing that there is a need to provide more, and we're trying to do the best that we can. But we do have wonderful teachers that they're not holding that against students. They're working with our students, and they're identifying that pretty quickly of what can we do to help at home, and not necessarily like an actual assignment, but can you read to maybe a sibling, or having family time like with the reading. So it's different assignments as to maybe what was in the past, more traditional assignments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Hello. So at Oak Hill Middle School, our goals are very similar to what you've heard. First slide. So our literacy goal, 52% of students will meet grade level standards as measured by our universal screener, which is the NWEA assessment. To support this goal, we have targeted instruction with 2 literacy classes this year, where we have an ELA teacher and a literature teacher. So they've broken the standards for literacy apart, and they've each married them, so each of the teachers are focused on those different standards to support all that's encompassed with the literacy instruction. Professional development for staff is ongoing, and through data analysis, as the other administrators have talked about, We're focusing on strengths and areas for improvement, and that's really where we're breaking down RTI supports as needed throughout the school year. So within the Tier 1 classroom setting, Tier 2, what do students need to support that growth and to boost their learning? Next slide. Math is very similar. 52% of students will meet grade level standards as measured by our universal screener. We are working with a DOE math specialist this year to streamline math instruction. We have ongoing professional development for staff, the data analysis, and again, RTI intervention supports throughout the school year. Next slide. Our PBIS goal, very similar. This is our second year working with Dr. Butterworth. So we're maintaining expected behaviors as measured by our office discipline referrals with the development and implementation of our PBIS intervention systems. We will create an environment at the middle school where behavior systems are established and measured by a reduction in the number of office referrals. So we're going to continue that consultation work with Dr. Butterworth, tap into the district PBIS team as well. Universal school-wide expectations, so we put those in place last year. We have the school-wide matrices that staff and students have been working on, and the staff have reinforced that throughout the school year in all different areas of the school building. And they'll continue to do that. Next slide. And our attendance goal is to achieve a 97% or higher attendance rate during this school year. We have implemented or are in the process of implementing the BAR program, which is building assets and reducing risks. And that's a full wraparound for all students. So all students are talked about and looked at with the teams of teachers just to make sure that all of their needs are being met and that no student is not discussed, to make sure that we are hitting all of their needs. We have the attendance tracker, communicating with families, and then the dropout prevention program. I think that's it. Any questions?
Douglas?
Couldn't help but notice, why 97% attendance compared to the 95 of the other schools?
We're ambitious at the middle school. We're very ambitious. Yeah, our goals were 52% as well. And, you know, based on the leadership team, we dug into that data, and that's really what we've identified as a staff that we're working towards, and we hope to exceed that. So, fingers crossed.
And then a follow-up to that is anything with like the busing situation, those absences excused and wouldn't be part of this, or this attendance as the challenges with busing and people not being able to get kids to school?
So, if they're you mean if a...
So with buses not running for some runs, if those kids are not able to be transported to school, would that count as absence?
No.
With the attendance?
That would not count against them, correct? Yeah.
Excuse that.
It's excused. Right.
So it would reflect in some of these, could reflect in some of these numbers if parents or caregivers were not able to get their kids to school. So,
But we would take that in, I mean, these are the school's goals.
right.
So
yeah,
they could look
across the
at
board.
that. They could look at, even though they might be at 95 and not 97, was an impact because the bus was down and.
What
So
factors we're
they
playing
can,
into
they
it.
look at those factors.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I just don't, like, not to stick on the bus thing, but I just am curious at maybe how many kids don't make it to school because of transportation issues and how maybe we can get those kids to school. Because a lot of parents or caregivers will just transport their kids, right? So, like, they have to take time off from work or they have to whatever. But I just kind of am concerned about that. And then can you explain, this is not, so previous other 3 schools were growth percentages, but this is the first one that speaks specifically to what the NEWA,
Yes.
or NWEA, and what is the current literacy number? So you're shooting for 52% is going to meet that. What are we at right now?
So each grade level is different coming in. Roughly, I mean, they hovered around within the high 40s. So we felt looking at the data as a leadership team, that our 52% was realistic, and that's what we were looking to achieve.
Can you get what the percentage increase expectation? So the goal is a 5% increase or 10% increase. So it would be less than a 10% increase from the current standard rate if they're in the high 40s?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then for math?
I'm going to give you the breakdown of every grade level of where
Okay.
they were. You got to understand that she made hers based on math growth, which is what we did. We doubled this last year.
And so she's doing her growth goal based on the map. This is not the state assessment. So we're going to give you both of those in the October one. So you'll be able to see where students were for map and the state and where they meet the goal.
So these two percentages are off from growth as well compared to the other three schools, or no?
Those are achievement.
Okay.
So at the middle school, they're more independent, so we have them, they're well aware of what their growth goals are. The teachers work on that with them, so they have that information, but that's what we're looking for, is the achievement for overall.
Christy has her hand up.
Christy?
I do. Just in light of the assessment conversation, I think it might be helpful for the community to understand, and not tonight, and maybe it's our next meeting, just kind of how much control the RSU has into the types of standardized testing that we have to implement with our students. Because I know as a parent, and I'm sure for those of you that are in the classroom or leaving school, it feels like a lot of assessment, and I'm not certain that the greater community understands kind of what the mandate is and what we have to do versus what we choose to do. So I just think that could be a really interesting conversation for our next board meeting.
Yeah, so the 52%, I guess, I would like to see a higher goal. When I was in high school eons ago, there was this poster up on top of what we called the blackboard at the time, the chalkboard, and it had this guy trying to climb a mountain, and it said, set your goals higher than you can reach and then reach them. So if you don't set a goal high, when you hit 52, you say, we met our goal. I look at what's the flip side, 48% not achieving. And I have great difficulty supporting philosophy that says that we're going to let almost half of our students, our future in this country and the community, that we're not expecting them to meet the minimum standards. And the only way we're going to do better is to set the goal better or higher and then work to achieve it, so that we don't slack off when we start getting close to the goal and say, we save a little bit, next year we can bump it up because we'll probably be pretty safe, we can make another 3% next year. So that's my comments. It goes across the board. For years and years we've tracked it. We have almost always, in math, been close to 50% of the grades meeting or exceeding the standards in the past. And I know we've lost some, but it's been a couple of years and we got to get off of that drum roll. All right, that's in the past. That can't keep carrying on for the next two generations of students, saying the pandemic caused us to be behind. Right. So my comment is that you want somewhat realistic goals, but you want challenging goals, or they're not really worth a whole lot.
I want to throw it out there. The administrators, if you don't meet the goals, what would happen, or what are the repercussions if you don't meet a goal?
We'd reassess and start looking at what can we do, what supports can we put in place to support staff, to support students, so that we can achieve those goals.
Do the administrators of the schools that didn't meet their goals, do they have negative consequences as a result of not meeting the goals? Just to throw that out there for public knowledge. Does that impact an evaluation of the school principal? If you aim for 52% and your school falls at 50%, does that come to be associated with the school principal and their evaluation?
So
Or-
it definitely goes into like our goals are based on what the school's needs are and what our data tells us. So what we put in place for our goals is focused on the data. So I don't know, Katie, if you want to.
Their evaluation is, they have a plan, just like everybody else has a plan. And so if they're doing what they're saying they're doing, they're checking, adjusting their plans to make sure they're hitting the goals, and they're doing well. If they're attempting and they're not doing what they said they were going to do, or they didn't have, then that would have impact.
I guess I'm just trying to put it.
But it's not on performance base.
Okay, I trying
They do not have
to
performance.
put it in perspective
Yep.
with what Bob's saying, that if we said 70% are going to pass, and the building administrator falls really low because that's where the student body can only meet a certain percentage, would that negatively impact them, the administrator? You know, to keep both sides in perspective.
Correct.
You know, like, I don't know.
Yeah, true.
So
It would not have an impact if
Just as long
they
as you're
went for
trying to-
100% and only made it to 50.
Okay, so to Bob's point, you could definitely set it. It sounds like you could set it higher without any kind of severe or negative consequences to your employment status or anything like that.
I think more of it is celebrating along the way.
Right.
It's building on success.
Right.
So
Achievement.
you don't want to
wanna-
make it too high, you want to make it attainable. And then if you're attaining, they would check and adjust that. So if in the winter they're already hitting 52, they would check and adjust their goal
And
to
shift
be
it to higher.
higher.
So the negative
Doesn't
is
have to
the
be-
student morale.
Right. Student, staff, it's just,
Okay, neg-
we're all celebrating those successes and those growths, but the goal doesn't stay 52. If you hit it in the winter, you're going to raise the goal.
And they celebrate the individual growth. So the students know what their growth goals are, so that's what they're celebrating along the way.
Just a question, so why aren't we doing it as a growth goal rather than meeting a grade level? You know what I'm saying?
Because that's how we wrote it at the middle school.
'Cause I just looked at the high schools and they did growth goals. That makes more sense.
It's different. It's a different way to look at the data. I don't know that it makes more sense, less sense. It's just a different way to look at the data.
I think it's important to know that it's not administrators that are making these goals, they're teams of teachers and a group of people who are looking at the data to determine what the goals are, and so their leadership team has determined that this is what the goal needed to be for the middle school. So try to honor that because that's the work that they do.
Again, I don't want my comments to come off as any kind of blame or
I think
accusation.
it's good
Okay,
conversation.
I guess I'm just trying to put it in, throw it out there onto the discussion floor. What would limit us from having stronger goals, and what may
I mean, they know,
cause that? You know?
it's interesting you say that because they're reading about universal tier 1 and they know that the goal is 80% or higher, okay? So everybody's been made aware of that, which is the data shows that if you're universal, so what's going on in the classrooms, everything is making impact to the degree it needs to be making impact, which is what we're all looking at, we would be at 80% or higher, right? So we know we have to bridge to that. If we're at 47, it wouldn't be realistic to say, well, we're going to be at 80, in one block. So everyone knows where the goal is here, and we're getting there at incremental. Right, so everyone's looking, like all the teachers look at, okay, where are my students as individuals and as a class? And then they have to report out, here's how my individuals did, what percentage of that made growth? And where are we with that 80% mark as well? So the goals don't tell the whole story of the conversations they're having.
I
Does that make
guess
sense?
having been at that budget meeting,
Right.
this is the thing that in
Comes
my
up.
town comes up
Right.
all the
Oh,
time.
yeah.
So it's not picking on middle school at all.
Oh, no,
Again,
they
it's just, it's very fresh in my mind because every time I've
Oh,
met
yeah.
with anybody from Litchfield, it's come up that they want to know that the money that they're paying for taxes is coming out with a measurable outcome. And this is touching on that.
course.
So I think to, again, back to Bob's point, is that the consensus seems to be they want to see there were quite a few comments that have been said that they couldn't, we're falling short of a bar in the public's eye. And this just kind of echoed that in some way, not anything but this discussion.
Right, and I think it's, it is important to note that there have been obstacles along the way, and there were setbacks. So we have to get kiddos back on track with all content areas, especially language arts. So that's going to really drive the rest of the content areas. So, that's something we really do have to keep in mind. And it's going to take time to get kids back to the norm as to what we knew it used to be.
And this is the first year of having the English be split up.
Yes.
And that's one of the plans that you
Yes,
said.
it is.
Literacy. And, again, just for anybody at
course.
home that's listening or whatever.
That's a strategy that they're going to check and adjust that. Did it work? Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. You guys ready for this or what, huh? Go ahead there, Norma Jean, you're all set. So our literacy goal is our growth goal. It's 45% of our students will meet their growth goal as measured by the NWEA. We'll be conducting those assessments the week of October 10th and identifying areas of strengths and areas of improvement for our students. Departments will take a look at that, and individual teachers will be responsible for taking a look at instructional strategy, which we'll implement school-wide, and then we'll progress check that between our fall testing window and our winter testing window and adjust accordingly. Obviously, our hope is that the strategy that we put in place across the board in regards to literacy has a positive effect, and we'll get that feedback in the winter. Math goal. Mathematics, it's the same, at least measurement. 45% of students will meet their growth goal as measured by the NWA. And again, we'll be doing the same activities as we did with the literacy goal, but just in the area of math, and doing our progress check in the winter time frame. Next step, PBIS. I'll read it, and then Sue, if there are any questions in regards to this, if that's okay. Okay, great. So we need to establish universal classroom expectations, which we've done a fair amount of work with Jennifer Butterworth on that. We're looking to align our language with the middle school, and with our end goal being to make sure that students and teachers know the school-wide classroom expectations. So the specific teaching that goes along with PBIS is in place and taken care of. Next goal, please, is the attendance goal. And so this is 95% of students will attend school from September to June, as reported by Power School. Last year, the last month of the school year, it was probably May, I would say, May, just because it's a larger sample. It was right around 88% total, so we're looking to bump that up. It's currently 91% from the start of school until today, so this is a good start. But we have weekly attendance meetings where we develop interventions for specific students. And then we're proactive in our approach with kiddos who are approaching, truancy, and having our SRO reach out, especially if we can't find kiddos. This is just something that does happen, ladies and gentlemen, that kiddos oftentimes drop off our radar in the sense of not attending school. They're off doing other things, and so we pull every resource we can to find them and try to integrate them back into school. And then also a process that we used prior to COVID was Count Me In. It's a foundation that works on attendance in schools, and so we'll be looking at some further professional development from that organization to pass along not only to our attendance team, but to the entirety of the school. And so those are our goals for this year at the high school. I'm happy to answer any further questions that you may have.
How will parents be able to kind of assist in helping students achieve their goals, their growth goals?
From the NWEA itself? Yeah, well, that's an excellent one, right? So you're talking about math and literacy in particular?
Yeah, so if a student, so my child has a 45% growth goal.
Sure.
So how do I communicate, or how do teachers communicate or staff communicate with me that my child is on target? Is it through like a power school? Are they?
Yeah, it's a great question, Laura. So, I mean, what it comes down to is the parent reports that we have access to and can share those with parents and students. More than anything else, it has to be relevant, right? And I think about that as far as the kids are concerned, because otherwise it's like, I'm just going to keep clicking buttons through this test to get through it, right? So, I mean, if we're actively setting goals as a school, passing that information along and making it relevant to students, passing that information along and making it relevant to parents, our hope is that with everybody seeing that information, knowing that we're using that information, that it will become relevant and they'll engage in what's going on in the classroom. I mean, I think really what it comes down to is the support of taking the test more than anything else. At the high school level, it can be difficult to sell to kiddos, right, that this test is going to be helpful, it's going to benefit you, because they don't necessarily see it relevant. So, I mean, I think more than anything else, the support I would say from parents is to, make sure that kiddos are taking the test and taking it seriously, because we are going to use that information. We are going to make sure that kids are doing the best that they can to meet their growth goals. I appreciate that. That's a good question.
You asked how parents could support. In my experience, getting them to bed on time, making sure that they feel well, being interested in how they're doing every day, and stress that their growth goal is theirs. So with whatever gains they make, that's their personal victory, and celebrate it. At the end of every test, they get a score, and they get a score of what you're shooting for. So the other piece that I found is that students stress over this because they think it affects their grade in math and English. It does not. It's a measurement of where they are and what teaching strategies they need next. So the basics are rest, not video games, getting to school as many days as possible, and trying their best, not asking kids to just go off the charts, but do their personal best, because every kid is unique and individual. And if you make your goal, celebrate your children. Make it important at home that they made growth in math, but they didn't do it in English. Celebrate it. And vice versa. Celebrate their victories, because those are their victories. Does that help?
Yeah, and just one thing that's been super helpful in the past is those tests come home with the 99 on them, or the 4s or whatever, and they make it to the fridge, And then sports has been very helpful as well. So teachers keeping them kind of in check a little bit with, but you're not going to be able to play football this weekend if you don't. Yeah, so.
Yeah, I guess so. It finally sunk in a little bit more after 3 or 4 presentations. But so the 45% of growth, each student is assigned their own growth expectation. And we're expecting 45% of the students to meet or exceed theirs. So they could be a wide range of expectations.
And the nice part about that, Bob, is that it takes into consideration everyone, right? So like when we talk about 80% achievement, we have students that unfortunately aren't going to be able to meet 80% of achievement on grade level. It's not going to happen. So the grade level, the growth aspect of things is more equitable, in my opinion, approach.
Right. So for a long time, I always thought it would be so great if every student had an IEP. So you would meet with every one of them, or something like an IEP that would set their goals and different things.
Sure.
And this is somewhat doing that in a couple of particular areas, so that they have some goals set aside in those areas, and then we can work on how we can get them to get there. So thank you.
Sure.
I just wanted to, all the other schools reported out that they would be meeting RIT scores. I just want, I looked it up, but just for to help combat the acronym naosity that we're dealing with. You reported yours as a measurable goal in NWEA, but that's also an RIT score.
That's correct.
Being measured. Just
That's correct.
right. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
And I know people asked how they can help. I know in the past for NWEA, if you go into their site, you can print off the things that their child specifically needs help on. You can print out a list, and I used to do that, and I would give it to parents, or I'd use it for myself to work with kids.
Great. That's good.
Is that in Power School at all, or that's something the school?
NWEA.
And those scores, by the way, are private. They don't post them anywhere. So when a student finishes the test, they get their score, and I've seen kids go, yes, and then kids go, because they miss it they set their own goals, and they miss it by 1 or 2 points. And if I remember correctly, the NWA also challenges the student as they take the test. So if they continue to do well on question 3, 4, 5, then they're going to be given more chances to show their growth. They'll have 20 questions and so forth and so on. And if they're struggling, the test picks that up and does not push them over the edge, doesn't frustrate them. It gets to them to a point where they can measure what they know and then lets them stop. So if that helps it at all.
Thank you. Committee reports. Anyone here from Finance and Facilities?
Yep, Finance and Facilities met today at 5:30, and we couldn't go over the minutes from the last meeting because Sam wasn't here, but we'll see those next meeting, seeing as how we're meeting every meeting now. Old business, an update on the audit fieldwork is still going on. I met with the auditors on Tuesday. They were pretty happy with what was going on and the information that they were getting. If you can look behind you, that big box that Sharon's sitting next to is all paperwork that's been supplied that the auditors are going through right now. So that's going to continue on. We talked about the solar credits. We're seeing our credits from the solar credits, but not really pertaining to the bills yet because we're going to get those. It's going to take a couple billing cycles for those credits to kick in. And on the new business, the feasibility RFP was posted. You probably saw it online. Katie sent that out.
Right. Yeah, it's going to post on Friday.
Oh, Friday, sorry.
That's okay.
She's going to post that on Friday now that it's written. And we got a dateline for questions of October 6th. We hope the proposal submission deadline is October 20th, but we may have to work with that depending on when the information comes back. The evaluation and selection process, we hope is the end of October, between the 23rd and 27th, but that's still going to be, and we're going to be putting out the project committee. We're going to open it up to try to get a committee size, of 9, Katie, we said? Of
9 to 12.
9 to 12. Select people, community members, board members, so we'll be looking for that later on. In the consolidation plan, we talked about the timeline for that and when the committee can start looking at closing and the steps that we have to go through to get to that if we decide on a building finally. And then we talked about the SRRF loan application, and that's the School Revolving Renovation Fund loan, and this time it is going out for air quality. So the buildings that we were going to cover underneath that are going to be Libby Tozier, Perry Ricker, and Sabatis Primary. And so I guess it's a competitive bid, right, Katie?
Yeah, well, the DOE takes all of
Yeah.
and then decides which ones they're going to fund.
Right. So we might get funding, we might not, depending on where we land, and the amounts might not be quite what we need to finish the project, but we won't know that until we apply. But we are going out and applying for as many grants and funding as we can get for those projects.
So the board will see this in October.
Yeah.
Because you have to approve the applications going in. Remember last year you approved the ADA. So what we
Yeah.
talked a lot about is it just putting them in doesn't mean we'll do them.
Right.
But we can't do them if we don't get on the list. So we're looking at Carrie Ricker, Libby Tozier, and Sabatis Primary for HVAC or air quality. And so if all three come back, as this committee meets about closure, and it's becoming more, okay, we're not sure, but Carrie Ricker is definitely going to be a school that has to be considered. We may say that's the one we want to move forward with the community. And remember, this is a 60-40, the state pays back 60% of the loan. So it will be a discussion about whether we move forward on that or not. But you don't have to, school board could say, we're not doing any of the ones that they fund. You could do one of them, you could do all three of them. So it doesn't hurt to put them in, is what I'm saying. And we're showing the DOE we have a need.
Yeah. All right, and Katie talked about the bus driver shortage, and so did we, and what we're trying to do around that to hire more drivers. So that was it.
Can I ask a quick question?
For the busing, I know some schools have put a bus out front, and where we have some that are available at the bus garage. Is there opportunity maybe to put a bus out by what is this, 26? Is there ability to put one there with a sign on it, stop in, apply?
Anything's possible.
Yeah.
We talked about road signs and this new program, once we find out the specifics of it, putting out posters about, hiring people, how many hours they have to put in order to be a bus driver, and that would reimburse them for the cost of the class at, after 1 year and all. Yeah, we're talking about all that going forward, but that's a great idea too.
I know some organizations are looking at hiring events and things, and who knows really. I mean, years ago weren't very successful, but I think a lot of more businesses are doing that, where you can walk in and hire and do. And then maybe next year at open houses or as different events happen, maybe some applications or somebody there doing that as well might be beneficial. Believe it or not, I spoke with somebody the other day that lives in Litchfield, and they had no idea that we were looking for bus drivers. I was like, I feel like you might be under a rock, but that's okay. Yeah.
Diane?
Yeah, no.
I don't know if this, well, we didn't have any communications from facilities, but I think this goes under your committee that you're working with. The water at SPS, the kids aren't allowed to drink it anymore, correct?
Now, the problem is in the sinks.
Yeah, it's in the sinks.
Yeah, so we've kept the bubblers there, and we're having, the water tests have gone in again. So all the faucets were switched out, and so we're hoping they're going to come back clear. People were nervous about us removing the bubblers.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I've had some community members
Correct.
reach out to me because there are no bubblers
Yeah.
in the school, and so the kids just have a water bottle and they can't refill it unless they go to a water fountain. But if they're upstairs, that's not a good idea.
No, their bubblers are still there. They have
Yeah.
not been removed.
But there's no water in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But I'll let you know the results of the water test.
IA, and technology.
Becky DeLisandro gave a presentation on literacy in K through 2. The same slideshow presentation that she gave to all the teachers at Libby Tozier, Spouts Primary, and Carrie Ricker. So we got to see what kinds of programs that are being utilized in our school district for reading.
All right, that's it. Thank you. Board member comments.
I've had, well, I can't say a lot, but I've had 3 or 4 questions about what's going to happen if this budget doesn't pass. And the only thing that I have told community members that ask that question is that in order to cut more out of this budget, it's going to involve programs, staff, and there's no other way to say it, I guess, then that is it. I mean, we've taken from every well that I think we could probably take from and not really impact education very well. So I guess for the people out there who are deciding whether or not they're going to vote for this budget, it's up to you to make that decision, but I just want to let you know that you never get more by taking more, you always get less. And that's the point that I'd like to make.
Just congratulations to the Dempsey Challenge and things. I know you guys worked pretty hard on that, even in the team of people. And I did want to also congratulate the adult ed, because I think we talked about it this spring of how we didn't have a ton of participation in programming and things. And, I think that's really important as we look at positions and opportunities and stuff. And I think you've shown that you've worked hard to get some of those programs for our community as well. And then just also to the building principals and teams that worked on some goals and things, because I think that's something that we maybe haven't always paid attention to. We've just kind of been in survival mode. So as we look at, not only people with kids in the district, but also as community members, that we do have goals and we're going to work towards those goals and show that we can not only improve, kind of the lives of our future, but also our local community and things. So I appreciate the work that went into that.
Anyone else? No? Seeing that there's none. Without any objection, I will declare this meeting